I would definitely tell myself, like, hey, ask for help. Don't be so fucking hard-headed. Don't think that you know everything, because to me, I think I come off really confident and really cocky sometimes, right? But like, I don't know what I don't know. Like, I'm still trying to figure out things too.
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your hosts, Brian Burton and Nate Minnick.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your hosts, Nate and Brian, hanging out with you and looking forward to re-inviting an old guest back to the show. Ismael Valdez is joining us today, and he is going to be bringing some great content to inspire you no matter where you are. If you're feeling down, stay tuned. It's going to be a great episode as we bring him back on to talk about all things that are going on in his world, in the trades, and of course, it's always a good time with Ish. Before we do that, though, Brian and I are going to spend just a moment talking ourselves, and we're going to turn to Brian to kick us off with a great quote.
The average person has an enormous amount of common sense because they haven't used any of it yet. Charlie Jarvis.
Wow.
I don't know that it has any place on this show, bro, but I just loved it. Like, this is going to make an episode, you know?
Yeah. Well, I know that most of our listeners have come across some people who have been lacking in the common sense department. Mr. Valdez is not one of them.
No doubt about that. Uncommon sense, I would say he's flowing with. The guy is an absolute innovator. I mean, he everything he sees is something to innovate. You know what I mean? There's no such thing as like the status quo with Ish. Like if he's looking at something, he's looking at something that should be better, and he's trying to figure out how to make it better. And so that's something I'm trying to implement myself in the training that I have put together. As you know, you were part of a lot of that training over the years, and know that most of my training came from seeds of things that I did in a truck, and I had a tremendous team that I was part of in Las Vegas that we really pushed each other and held each other accountable. And I was one guy that just always had these black and white, like kindergarten, almost grade school notebooks. You know, it has the like black and white cardboard cover on both sides, and it's just lined paper inside.
Yes, the composition book.
That's it, the composition book. I had a stack of these, and one of them was just a quote book, and I carried that one all the time. And where the idea to always read a quote to start this show came from was Lance Fernandez or Ken Goodrich or whoever was running the meeting at the time back in the day, and at Yes there in Las Vegas would oftentimes just say, "Brian, you got a quote for us this morning?" And I would just pop open my quote book. Now, there was no Google, there was no Safari, no DuckDuckGo. You couldn't just find quotes. If you found a quote, it was either on a coffee cup, some that you had to drink of somewhere, or you read a book. Like, there weren't quotes just lying around like there are now. They're very easy to come by. But then I did a lot of reading, like trying to get better, trying to get smarter, and I didn't start this till I was in my 20s. But at that time, I was going crazy, consuming everything I could find to finally, you know, feel intelligent and master myself and learn about the world that I just hadn't seen growing up in Southwest Detroit. I just didn't really know about the world outside of it. So every time I came across a line where I was just like, man, that was so cool, I would write it down and I would write the author's name next to it. And I ended up having a thick book full of these quotes. And we would start the meeting, and oftentimes whoever was running it said, "Brian, you got a quote for us?" And I would read one off, and they'd put it on the board. And that became this. And oftentimes in my trainings, both in Pennsylvania, where I was there until June of this year, and Phoenix, Arizona, where I'm at now, many of my trainings will start with a quote written on the board, and this is what our meeting is about. So being part of that crew and doing what we did and holding each other accountable, like no matter what we were using in our sales process, there was always somebody who was going to try to improve upon it, really mostly because we were so competitive and we just wanted to be the one who owned the whatever, the rebuttal, the whatever. We were always just trying to one up each other so that we put the finishing touch, on this rebuttal or on this way to ask for the business or whatever. So even today, I'm going through my trainings, and oftentimes, that's where I developed what I train on. And then over the course of the next decade there in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, training, I turned them into better and better and better sales processes. And now in Phoenix, I'm doing the same thing in a different area. And I'm still looking at everything I do from a somewhat critical lens, but also an innovative lens. Like, I feel like the way you sell changed a lot after 2020. I felt like it got much more, you need to be much more empathetic, or maybe just people are much more empathetic. I mean, we were talking today in training about the fact there's just a few guys my age or older in that room. And we were talking about how people in the 90s and 80s were like meaner. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, with the insults and like the smacks
not
and
even
that sort of stuff.
Blunt. People
okay.
were much more blunt, and they're much nicer, and they're much more cognizant of. Oh yeah, they are. I'm not talking about online.
I'm saying I could go for some bluntness in today's
society.
Oh
yeah. No, I'm not saying whether one's better or worse. But because you get people that are bottling it all up in person, and then they let it all out on Twitter or whatever, and you're like, okay,
the keyboard warriors, here we go.
Yeah, but people are they're nicer now, or they're more cognizant of how they're treating people now, and it's just a whole different thing. And I think since 2020, sales, or whatever you want to dress it up and call it, and everybody's online talking about how I'm not sales and I don't train sales and it's service because, I'm a blowhard. I mean, whatever. I don't know. I don't care. I train people to sell. So the way you do that, I think, has needed to become increasingly empathetic and taking people's feelings into consideration, and more passion and more enthusiasm and less detail. And so we were building presentations here the last couple weeks on water treatment, but the product really is insignificant. It doesn't matter. It's just what you're doing. And a lot of people immediately go to we'll say features and benefits or whatever, features of the product. So Nate, why would I want water treatment in my home? You would say, well, you have hard water and chlorine, or you're on a well, you have acidic water and a lot of hardness or iron or whatever. Well, is that a reason?
It is a reason. It's not an experience.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Experience. I need you to wordsmith it for me, buddy, in training. Actually, we're not even recording all this. I'm here. Let me take a note here.
I'm here all
in experience. So we're going against that old mantra that Gene Slade said on the Jargon episode of this show back in 2021. Don't call it what it is. Call it what it
does.
What it does for or to the client. In chlorine's sake, in bacteria in the air's sake, if we're talking indoor air quality cleaning products, or in electricity's sake, if we're talking whole home surge protectors and whatever. Now it's like we have garage door companies listening. We have dog grooming people and mosquito squads, and like we have listeners of like all these different trades, pressure washing, and I want to get a list together of everyone I've been contacted by who listens, and like write down all these professions, because I feel like I do a disservice to the people who aren't as represented in the trades that listen to the show. But anyway, regardless of what the product is, regardless of what we're selling, there's a big difference between walking in and saying you have hardness, you have chlorine, right? There's a big difference between saying this is the garage door that has the 80,000 cycle motor and it's the newest, latest and greatest technology, and it's triple pane insulation and it's thicker, but it's still light. Like, so what? Why are you telling me this? Imagine the salesperson who walks in and says, this is the result of your water test. Would you like to hear what most of our clients have us do when we run across these water tests? Yes. They have us do this. And then they tell us this afterwards. You walk in and say, like, you're talking about the same garage door. What do I want from a garage door? I don't know anything about garage doors, nothing. But I know what I want. I want safety, I want security, and I want comfort. So I'm in Arizona. I want to know that scorpions aren't crawling under my garage door. That would be nice. It's going to be 115 degrees here in a few months. I would like to know that it's not going to be 115 degrees in my garage. Thank you. That would be really cool. A little bit of insulation, right?
Right.
I would like to know that when my toddler is walking under the door, it's not going to fall down and crush her. That would be great. There's some safety features there. I would like to know that the softest spot in my home for a burglar to get in or a whatever is not the garage door. I would like some security, right? Or that it's not easily picked up and busted off its track.
Love me some security.
So this is how you sell. And I used probably the, among the least represented trade in our audience, which is the garage door people, although we do have some. Because it's not something I've ever sold before. It's not people, although I have trained a few now. It's not something I've done a whole lot of research on, but it's just an example of, like, if you're going to quote unquote sell a product, it's the old timeshare moniker, man. We talked about this in Timeshare all the time. If you're selling somebody a vacation and you have an hour to talk, are you really going to spend 45 minutes talking about the flight?
Yeah, no, because that's the worst part of it.
But that's what we do. That's what we do in the trades. We talk about the technical stuff and, like, what this stuff is and definitions and names. And, like, I hear it all the time. If you don't believe me, write out your presentation and email it to me. Text it to me on Facebook Messenger, on LinkedIn, whatever. Send it to me. As you're writing it, you will start to see yourself talking about technical jargon. And I know, because I just had guys I've been training for 3 months do it. And probably half of them immediately started going to this technical stuff that they know and they're comfortable with. And I'm standing there as a client pretending to know nothing, going, time out. Why do I care about any of that? And I might care. I might not like the word chlorine, but do I care enough about the word chlorine to drop several $1,000s with you right here, right now? Probably not.
Right. So
and I was making fun of them because a few of them still will write, client had no interest in water treatment in the notes. Like, bro, I would not admit that if I was you. Never would I put that in. I told them, I'm like, they tried to get finance, they failed. They had 6 relatives come over and they failed financing. Like, whatever it takes to not have to say that I failed at building interest in something that purifies the water with all these chemicals and pesticides and prescription drugs in it, that are not filtered out strenuously. But our job is to connect what you said, the client experience, with what these products will do for them. That's your job as a salesperson. And I find myself wanting to clean the language up and say, oh, we don't sell, we provide I feel like the guys that promote that really hard, they don't have a lot of substance. If you dig up the surface a little bit, nothing going on underneath. Who cares? That's sales jargon. Call it whatever. It's sales. When you're selling for a living, you are trying to find a pain and find the symptom of the pain and then connect it to the cure, right? So you find the symptom, then you find the cause, and then you find the cure and you bring it to the client's attention. Here are the symptoms you experience. Here's how my cure is going to take care of those symptoms for you. And when the clients realize what all these products do for them, you will understand, because you'll see it firsthand as a tech out there, why there are people making 3, 4, 5, 800,000 a year, $1 million a year running a service truck. It's happening all over the country right now. It's happening. There are people doing it left and right. And you should be doing it too. If you're not in an utterly depressed market where there is no money and no credit, you have the opportunity to be doing these things. And your clients are not calling Dateline to have you arrested or humiliated. They're writing books about you on Google about how fantastic their water is, their garage is, their the fact that they don't have mosquitoes biting them up anymore, how much cleaner their swimming pools are, and how much they love their the air that they're breathing in the home. And like, these are the type of things that we get to do for people. Maybe it's a generator and, you know, the power went out and they still had all their life-saving oxygen and stuff like that. Whatever it is, we have the opportunity to do these upgrades for clients that leave their lives changed, leave them enjoying their system a little bit more. And when we just walk in there and talk about terms and conditions or whatever, details and definitions, we're doing them a disservice. We're doing ourselves a disservice. We're doing our family a disservice. We're doing our team a disservice. What we have to do is start connecting the symptoms, what they feel, what they should dislike about what they feel, to the root cause, and then connecting our product or service to the cure, right? And that's how you do it.
Preach, brother. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I was bottling that up, buddy. I was holding it in because I had a good conversation with our techs about it. And we went back around that room, man, and everybody was just like, bam, this, ooh, boom, that. Like, you know, when you feel this, yeah, you're going to be done with that after this, you know? And then you're going to funnel it down. You're going to do all that, and you're going to walk right up to them and say, this is what we talked about right here. This is the package we talked about. $138 a month. I happen to have this on my truck right now. Would you like me to go ahead and throw it in for you?
Sure would.
What did I do right there? How did I end?
With ask for the business.
What? Right? Ask for the order. 85%. 85% of salespeople across the United States in all professions of sales. This is going back to probably like 2004 or something, 2012, an article I read. But 85% of salespeople in 1,000 different salespeople they followed in all different professions never asked the client one time to buy. Not one time. So if you're someone who will just walk up and ask that client to make the purchase, take ownership, you're in the top 15% of salespeople. Just like that.
Yep. And that's what we need, more of that. And it's going to be a great conversation that we have with Ismael in terms of all things relevant to inspiring you and getting you motivated. I'm already motivated. So Brian, thanks for that. And looking forward to talking with Ismael even more about those things. But before we do, it is one final thing before we get to the interview, and that is to highlight a special review of the week. Brian, who do we have today?
The Successful Life Podcast. What's up?
Whoa.
Yeah. My man, Corey B. Corey Barrier, unless it's somebody from his team on the Successful Life Podcast. I lay awake at night waiting for the next episode. Oh, come on, buddy. You overdid it, my man. 5-star. Okay, he's back in our good graces. Brian and Nate, it's so incredible what you guys bring to the contractor space. The days in between when each podcast releases are some of the harder days as we eagerly await the golden nuggets that always get dropped on every episode.
Was this written by
Dare roll your eyes, Nate Minnick.
Chat GPT? Like, what's going on here? Out of
because of this show, I get to learn from the brightest and best. Nate, you're coming along, buddy.
It doesn't say that.
Brian, keep pulling Nate up. He is getting so much better with all your help. Oh, it says that.
Okay.
Nate, it must be tough doing a podcast with such an icon. Okay, he's messing with you, bro.
Wow.
Keep giving back, fellas. That was great. So Corey and I talk, I don't know, probably every other week or something like that. And he has a great sense of humor. So yes, he was digging at you there a little bit. But the icon part, absolutely accurate. He's absolutely right about that. In fact, I don't get enough appreciation from my co-host for my icon status.
You get more appreciation than you probably deserve, Brian. So
all right, you might be right. It's fair.
There's
enough.
one job I have on this show, is that to check your ego. That is it. It's the only job.
We appreciate you, Corey B, and the Successful Life podcast. And hey, that's a great way to get your podcast mentioned on another podcast, right?
That works.
A good idea, Corey. I'm gonna write Joe Rogan a real nice review here from Waste No Day podcast. If you like the show, if you enjoy some content, if you get something good out of it, some good nuggets, we'd love to hear about it on a review. We'd also love if you'd tap a buddy, send them an episode and say, hey, check this out, subscribe, auto downloads, write a review, tell them what's up. But
Sure be
at
cool
the end of
if
the
you
day,
did.
we ask this every week, and it gets to feeling kind of, I don't know, begging. I don't know. I don't like it. But ever since we started asking,
certainly not beneath you, Brian.
No, not at all. Ever since we started asking, our reviews have actually taken off. Like as we sit today, we're at 257 Apple reviews, probably 140 or something Spotify 5 stars.
So an R, was that an R? I heard that, a Spotify.
Did I say Spotify?
I don't know, but it sounded awesome.
I don't know. It's Spotify's like to 30% of our downloads, so it's a big deal.
All right. Shout out to the Spotify 1% crew.
Yeah, Spotify's Wrapped or Spotify Wrap Up or whatever that is. People have been sending me their Spotify Wrapped, showing us that they're in like the top 5, top 10, top 1% of listeners by hours listened to the show this year. And it turns out it is the wrap of the entire year. That's been pretty freaking cool. Like cool. I've got 4 1%ers who sent me their Spotify Wrapped now.
Hey, look at that. It's finally cool to be a 1%er.
Yeah.
There was a time not too long ago when that was persona non grata.
They're finally paying their fair share. Because all the 1%ers I know don't pay any tax whatsoever, right?
Yes. Yes. Tax the rich. Well, let me tell you, we are going to have a rich conversation today, and we are looking forward to it.
Good one.
It is time to put Mr. Ismael Valdez into your passenger seat. Our guest today is Ismael Valdez. He is a man on a mission and the owner of the #1 HVAC company in Southern California. Nexgen has grown to become an impressive family-owned and operated HVAC business by sticking to the basics. Superior customer service, data efficiency, and a highly trained staff of technicians and contractors. Ismael Valdez's journey started out as a young aspiring HVAC technician over 15 years ago, and he hasn't forgotten his roots. Valdez believes in the family unit and treats every customer like they are part of his own. His continued commitment to fairness and dedication to core values has helped his business grow exponentially. Beyond Nexgen, he now has his fingers in multiple other companies. We'll be sure to talk about that today. And he is always we'll call him a serial entrepreneur at this point, looking for the next big thing. He's going to talk about some of that today as we invite him back onto the show. Welcome here, Ish.
Oh, man. Thank you guys for having me here, man. Honestly, thank you guys for having me here. I need to come in here and talk to you guys more because I feel like we could help a lot of your audience too. So thank you guys for having me back. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming back on and kind of we've gone back and forth a little bit about another episode, and then what was it just like yesterday? You're like, let's do one this week. I'm like, we just got an opening tomorrow night. Let's go.
Let's go.
It's like perfect timing.
I love when things happen like that. When somebody texts you, hey, let's do this, and you're like it fits right in your schedule. So I'm glad we did it today.
It's perfect. And it just so happens we're having like your whole crew on in the matter of like the last 3 weeks, we've had almost the whole crew on Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because you'd be the
Hell
only one who
yeah,
didn't.
hell yeah. I don't think they know what crew we're talking about, but the crew that Brian's referring to is the LSD crew. We came. It's like 7 of us. We all either sold our company or have $100 million companies, and we're all in a group message. And I thought it was like, well, I put them all in one group message, and I told them, hey, you guys need to all talk to each other and help each other out, because like that's the point of like the trades is we all help each other when we're hurting. If you're having a bad month, if I'm having a bad month, like mentally, it helps people. Like it helps everybody, right? When we're all in a group masterminding how to get better. So I came up with that crew, and about a month ago, 2 months ago, said I think Tommy or Cristiano might have said, hey, we need to like call ourselves something, because like this is pretty dope. Like I can't even like he said like I can't even believe I'm part of this group. Like you guys are all such like dope operators. Like we should call ourselves something. So like within like 5 minutes, I'm like, we're gonna call ourselves LSD, and they're like, what does it stand for? I'm like, it's a drug, and they started laughing, right? But I'm like, no. It stands for Lean Service Degenerates, and the name came about because we all started working out. We're all working on our businesses. We're all, we're all with God faith individuals. We're all like we're all part of like this little circle that like we all want to help you. We all want to help the industry. So we called ourselves LSD, and I'm glad they talked about it, man, because it shows how much of a little impact one little thing could do to the whole crew.
Hey, they also talk about the Service Avengers group, which Nate and I are also part of. Before you talk about that though, obviously Ismael Valdez, part of the LSD crew. Who else is in the crew?
Cristiano, Tommy Mello, Travis Ringy, which is my best friend, Tom Howard, Chad Peterman, Chris Hoffman, and Aaron Gaynor. So it's 8 of us total.
Okay.
And dude, you know what's crazy, Brian? Before we get into the other one, like I've gotten DMs, like a ton of DMs. Like, how do I like become a part of that group? And I'm like, like that's pretty cool that people actually want to be part of it, because today we were just doing it to throw around and help each other, and obviously innovate the industry. But now like people are DMing me like, is it like a real crew thing? And I'm like, yeah, it's a real thing. Like we are like a little crew that we just hang out and talk it and try to motivate each other, man.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's awesome to. Well, of course, people are trying to get in. I'm guessing all of those private messages came from Nate. He really
Nate
wants
in
to be
three different ways to spell Nate.
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
So, talk a little bit about Service Avengers.
Dude, I'm glad you guys are in it. Be honest with me. Does it help? Like, do you think it's helping people when people are going in there and interacting and like commenting and helping? Like, do you really think it's like making an impact? Because sometimes I go like, man, this is a dope group. I see a ton of comments and ton of interaction. What's your view on it, Brian?
Yeah, I think so. I got in, like when I got in, I was thinking, hey, I would get advice from like you, the head of the group, who's in a much bigger company than me. Or in Tommy's group, I'd think the same thing. That's actually not what happens. What happens is you ask a question or someone asks a question and you get 40 answers from guys bigger than you, and then 40 answers from people smaller than you. And then marketing people companies jump in, and then it's crazy how that works. It really is pretty profound. And we actually have the Waste No Day group. But I don't know, Nate and I just do not do enough with that group, right, buddy? Right. But Nate's committing to start doing something with that group right now.
You guys need to get on it. Look, it took me 3 years to get it up to like almost 6,000 members, and 90% of those people are actual owners. There's like rarely that many technicians and like high level sales guys. They're owners, CEOs, managers, or high level operators in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a great platform because of that. And the reason you probably don't have a ton of techs is most of the conversation in there isn't something techs are going to get a whole lot out of.
Yeah.
But if you're a manager and an owner, there might be a lot of conversations you won't understand in the beginning. But being in there myself for almost 2 years, probably, I've noticed my business IQ go up significantly because of some of these groups.
Dude,
it's a big help.
Dope.
Finally broke the double digits.
What was that, Nate?
I said finally broke the double digits.
My IQ. Thank you.
Yes. So Ish, we've had you on before. It was actually back in March. But before we go too much farther, give us like the 30-second speech as to who you are and what you're all about, so the people who may not have heard of you before or missed that episode in the past have a little clue about who you are.
Look, I'm gonna save you the sob story of like my background and how I was smuggled
No.
into the United
Don't save us. Like
States.
you actually glossed over it last time, and I was interested to hear more about that because you were just like, yeah, I was smuggled over in a trunk of a car, and then you just moved on, and I'm like, whoa, hold up, time out,
I
bro.
really like.
So
I don't want people to like to have an excuse or to have a like. I want people to know that like I'm just a regular dude, just like anybody else. It took me. I didn't even graduate high school. I'm not like you're not gonna hear these big old words from me, or you're not gonna see like I'm like super smart and super intellectual, and I use these like I'm not that guy. Like I'm just a real dude, man. Like I was. I'll go back to when I was a young kid. I was born in Mexico. I came over here. Me and my older brother came over here when we were 5 years old, and and we were smuggled through the border, right? So it was different times back then. Back then, you could cross people a lot easier than what you could do now. So I came over here. Me and my brother got smuggled into the United States when we were 5 years old. I grew up in Orange County, California, in a city called Anaheim. When I went to high school just like everybody else. I barely graduated high school. While I was in high school, while I was graduating high school, I was going down to pick up some shirts for one of my. I wanted to go out with my buddies, right? So on the way over there, I see this now hiring sign for this company called Howard Industry, which is a distributor to American Standard Equipment. So I went in there just applying on the way over there. So I wasn't even thinking that they were going to give me an interview or a job or anything. I was there for probably 10 minutes, filled out the interview, filled out the app. The manager, Richard, comes up to me and says, hey, what's your name? And I talked to him for like 5 minutes. He's like, is there any way you could start on Monday? You look like you're exactly what we're looking for. I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'll start on Monday. Like if you give me a little bit more than what I'm making right now. I think I was like 17 at the time, bro, like 16 at the time, making like $7 an hour. And he gave me like $8 or $9. I don't remember what it was. So I started that Monday, and I started building my relationships inside of Howard Industry. I think I was there for 9 years before I actually ventured off on my first venture, which was RH1, which is a little mom and pop shop air conditioning company. I got them to like $1.5 million within like a couple years. Didn't really think much of it. Then my real venture came out to Home Comfort USA. I think I was there for since the beginning. We blew it up to from zero customers to $21 million in revenue. In 4 years, we had 160 something employees. And then me and the owner, made a handshake agreement of being 50-50 partners. It didn't work out. He kind of wanted to take a different different turn on the company, and he let me go for some reason. I think it was because my salary was too high, and I was, making decent money. So I think he was cutting a bunch of overhead, from what I know now, right? So he lets me go. A couple weeks after that, I turn off my phone. I don't want to talk to anybody because I was really disappointed with him. Turn on my phone, and I probably have like 100 offers from people trying to get a hold of me. Like, hey, if you come work for me, I'll give you this, I'll give you this, I'll give you this. And I was about to take an offer for like a ton of money, and my wife turns around and just says, no, I think you should start your own company. You're going to go do the same thing over there. You're going to teach them how to grow it. You're going to grow it for them. And then they're going to think you're like, they figured you out, and then they're going to fire you. So why don't you just start your own? And I think that's where we made the deal. We started Nexgen Air Conditioning the next day. And dude, I think I was in my garage for 3 months. After my garage, I got my first shop like in January of 2016, I think it was. I got my first shop, and we went all balls in, man. First year we did 9.8 mil. Second year we did 18.3. Third year we did 32. Fourth year we did we did 23.4. Then we did 32. Then we did 60, and then we did 100. So I sold the company last year. I sold the company a year and a half ago almost. Got it up to $100 million in revenue. I'll tell you guys how much profit, because I don't give a. Oh, sorry, I can't. Sorry, because I don't care. I think we were doing 11.1% profit on 100 mil. Sold the company, and I'm still involved now. Like I'm still going in there, every day. I got a couple other ventures that I'm venturing off on. So I won't bore you guys too much with that story.
So what are the other ventures? So you're CEO of how many companies now?
I got seven companies. So I got a couple roofing companies in Arizona. I think they're going to do about $20 million this year. I got Nuve, which is my thermostat I came up with. I got DataCube, which is a live KPI software I came up with about 3 years ago. Nuve, by the way, I've been working on for 2 years. I just bought a Hibachi Hana food chain that has like 4 restaurants. I got it up to 9 restaurants now with a distributor, and we're growing that. And then I think I'm gonna, and then I got the Service Avengers group that I pay attention to and I help you guys on. I think I'm gonna buy like 6 or 7 nectar juice bars now. Just because of like where my buddies are being landed at. So I'm like this new phase of my life. I think I'm just taking ventures with like close friends that I'm having really like a ton of fun with. Like Legacy was, I'm doing it with Travis Ringy, which is part of the LSD crew. So
what's Legacy?
Legacy is a roofing company,
okay.
And the only reason why I'm getting into roofing is because I really genuinely believe that industry is the most outdated industry. I mean that sector of the industry is the most outdated one in the whole home service industry. So I kind of want to go in there and speed up the evolution of the industry of the roofers.
It would have been garage doors if not for Tommy.
Dude, it would have been garage doors. Now that I know what I know about garage doors, I'm like, I should have been a garage door company. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, no, dude. If it wasn't because of Tommy, I promise you, I probably would have gotten into garage doors for sure.
So you have 7 businesses you're CEO of. Yep. All these companies that you're, I'm sure, part owner in that you're not CEO of. Yep. You are in the Service Avengers. You're jumping on podcasts. I've seen you on a few. I saw you on J-Dubs here recently. You are part of the LSD crew, which I know takes time because every crew I'm part of takes time.
Sure.
And
for sure it does.
You have 4 daughters, a lovely wife. You spend time with all of them. You
a ton of time.
You spend time with God. And
yes, every morning, every night, and between morning and night. If you see me quiet, I'm probably praying. So yes, every night, every day.
And on top of that, one thing I wanted to touch on in particular, because I know almost everybody in your LSD crew, and I know that they are all right now very much into physical fitness. So on top of all that, you're still managing to squeeze out how much time in the gym per day?
I'm doing 2-hour sessions there. 2-hour sessions every day. Say I do 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off. Same. I got a chef now, so he's got me on a huge diet too. 3 days of protein and 1 day of carbs. 3 days of protein, 1 day of carbs. So yeah, I got a lot going on, man.
All right, so we can just end the show now and say screw all of your excuses, and we're done. That's that.
There shouldn't be excuses for anything, though. Honestly, like why? An excuse for what? For not having a better life, or an excuse for not making more money, an excuse for like not being able to spend more time with your family and people that you care about. Like those excuses is what's keeping you away from that. Like I'm only 35 years old, and I'm not saying I'm the wisest man in the world, but once I started learning that every time I would put an excuse in front of me, it would take something from the people that I care about, or it would take something from what my goal was, right? It would take from them. So I started not making excuses and just doing things that I need to do. I need to run a Nube, which is a thermostat company. I need to run Data Cube. I need to run Nexgen, which is 600 employees. We have employees in every single branch. Habachiana has like 90 employees. I got to do podcasts for you guys because I want to help you guys out. I have to go work out because, it makes me feel good and it feels like I actually did something for the day. So like once you guys stop making those excuses on why you can't go to the gym, or why you can't run that extra call, or why you can't, why you're not making more money, or why you're not in the place in life that you want to be, those are all excuses that's keeping you away from it. And once you realize that, your whole mindset shifts to like, you're fucking right. Like there shouldn't be an excuse of why you don't work out. Why don't you work out? Why? Because you think you're too busy? Wake up early, or stay up late. Or why can't you run, your 3-4 calls for your company and educate yourself on being a contractor? Oh, because you're too busy being a technician? Yeah, that's fine. But like, you can also carve an hour out of your day before you go to sleep and read on contracting law so you can go and start your own business. Like, there should be no excuses for anything. Like, there's enough time to do everything.
Ish, were you always like that? Were you always the guy that had no excuses, like even as a kid and through school? Or was that something that developed in you?
No, my dad taught us that since we were young, man. My dad used to like kick our ass basically in nicer terms. Like my dad would beat the hell out of us for not going to baseball practice. My dad would kick our ass if we didn't go to school. If we were like, oh, my stomach hurts, I can't go to school, like he would be like, you're gonna go to school, or I'm gonna kick your ass. And we got the point of like, there's no excuses on why we shouldn't go to school. Like, so we went to school, we went to practice. We after practice, we had a full-time job. Like my dad was really hard on us. That's what got me to where I'm at, because he always told us, why are you guys making excuses on why you can't go to baseball practice? Oh, because your arm hurts? Okay, cool. Like, don't go as hard on that arm. Like, work on your legs, work on your swing, work on this, but go to practice, right? So I think I got it from there, to be honest with you, Nate. From my dad and my brother, Eduardo, which is my oldest brother.
Yeah. And that makes sense, certainly, especially with, coming into America and having the opportunity, there's a high risk, high reward. And that's certainly been something ingrained in you. For perhaps some of our listener base who have developed the nasty habit of making excuses and have year over year gotten deeper and deeper into that pattern, what is your advice for like turning the tide on that? Because it's not as easy as just saying like, hey man, just stop making excuses. Or maybe you think it is, but like, how do you undo years of making excuses?
I think when this is for the listeners, Nate, I think when people start valuing their family and their kids way more than they value themselves and their time, I think that's when the turn hits of like, okay, now I get why I'm here, right? Like, I know that I needed to bust my ass because I don't want my 4 beautiful girls to ever suffer and ever be like, hey, I don't have money to pay the rent. I don't have money to buy a car, Dad. I don't have money to go to college. So I put that burden on myself of making sure that no matter what I do, I'm going to make money just so I can be, not for myself. Obviously, yes, I'm enjoying it, right? I got some dope cars, a bunch of houses, a bunch of shops, all that. But like, I 100% did the deal because of my daughters. I want to make sure that they never suffer. And I think that's what most people need. Most people don't have that one, how could I call it? That one thing
Why?
in their life that they,
why.
the one.
Yeah.
Exactly. They don't have it, or if they have it, they're not paying attention to it. And once people like learn to that there's a bigger purpose for us in life than just ourselves, that's when things start, like, you start looking at things differently. Like, I do need to start my own business. I do need to work out. I do, like, in order for me to create generational wealth for my kids and my kids to not have to worry about me, I'm worrying about them. Like, I have to start a business, or I have to be, a hyper performing sales guy, technician that are making 4 or 5. Dude, I got technicians at Nexgen making 400,000 to 600,000 a year. I got sales guys making 800,000 to 900,000 a year, making, okay, not like selling, making, taking home, right? I got those guys. Like, but you talk to them, Brian, you talk to them, Nate, same thing. They don't make an excuse. They wake up, they work out, they can work on their mind. They make sure that they're spiritually there too. They know that the reason why we're here is because of the Lord, right? So they know that, and they go and they run their 3 calls. They make sure that they're every single call, they put their 100% effort. They don't skip steps. Just because you woke up hungover on a Monday doesn't mean that your first customer gets the experience. Just because you're tired or because you couldn't sleep because you were on your phone all night doesn't mean that your first and second customer are going to get an experience. What you need to do is fine tune your mind to, hey, I'm going to go to sleep early. I'm going to work out. I'm going to eat as best as I can, and I'm going to go and perform for my clients. Once they do that for their clients, or for their technicians, for their installers, for their company, that's when everything's going to shift for them, man.
I mean, you make it sound so easy, man, and you're inspiring while you do it, And I'm just thinking, like, there's you're running, 6, 7 different companies, whatever it is, and you have all of these things going on. And for somebody who's just trying to get into it, like, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming to hear all the things that you're doing. I mean, it's inspiring, yes, because it's like, wow, look at that. But you're so far away from some of us that it's like you're not even in the same planet, and so it makes obtaining what you're doing and how you're doing it seem like a never possibility. And so, like, trying to step it down is where it's difficult.
So let me step it down. the one thing that everybody wants to do, right? Especially technicians and sales guys and installers, they think they could run their own business. They think they could start their own companies. They think they could do all that. Like, the only way you're gonna find out if you're gonna be successful in that is to do it. Okay, so let me not dumb it down. Let me simplify like the why you should do what you're doing, right? You want to make more money, you have to be especially in the trades, you have to be a high performing technician, project manager, or really high level installer. Like, you have to do that, right?
You got it.
Go and put your heart in that, and until you get satisfaction in that, dude, there's technicians out there that should never start their business. Let me listen. Let me say that again. There's some sales guys, technicians, installers, office managers, all those guys. There's people that should never start their own business, right? That doesn't mean you shouldn't start their own business. That means that you should try it, just so you can know that whether you're going to make it or not. Because if you don't take that chance of making it, of trying it, you're never going to know. And that's I think that's one of the second biggest driving factor for myself is the curiosity of knowing how far I can push this, right? And that's what the listeners need to do. Like, if you really want to start your own business, right? And some of them don't, because some of them are making really good money. They're comfortable getting home by 5 p.m., right? They love spending time with their family. Like
the whole spending time with the family thing in the beginning of a business, right?
Oh, dude, I was gone for 7 years. I didn't even know. Like, my daughters would see me once in a while. My daughters when they would see me, they would just hang on to me because they didn't know when the next time they were going to see me. Like, so it is hard, right? It's not like it's easy, but like, in order for you to find out, you have to make the initial decision of like, okay, I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it my all, and give it your all. And guess what? If you fail, at least you know you can still go back to working for a company. You can still go, as long as you're living in good terms, obviously, but you could still the worst case scenario, you're still a badass technician. Worst case scenario, you're still a badass installer. Worst case scenario, you're still a badass project manager, sales guy. You're still that. So take the risk in doing it on your own, and if it works, then it works. Good for you, right? But if it doesn't, at least you still know that you have something to fall behind that. Once you get that clear here, game over. You're gonna start making decisions.
Have you always been a risk taker? Has that always been part of your personality?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because look at the same thing I told you right now, Nate. Worst case scenario for me, right? The worst case scenario, let's say, Brian, you're a $5 million sales guy. You're going to make through $400,000 to $500,000 anywhere you walk into. That's worst case scenario for you, right? If you were a high performing sales guy. Same thing with you, Nate. Let's say you were a badass technician. That's the worst case scenario. You're a badass technician. For myself, I could walk into any shop in the world, any shop in the United States, and be like, hey, this is what I've done, and I could help you grow your company, or I could help you do this. I want $1 million salary. Everybody's going to say yes to me, no matter what, right? So that's the worst case scenario for me. I could still walk in and make millions of dollars anywhere I want to. That's worst case scenario for me. Cool. I'll take all the risk in the world, because that's the worst case scenario. That's the bottom of the floor for me, is making millions of dollars helping other people while I still have my family and my beautiful girls, right? That's how people need to start thinking, Nate. Like, making $200,000-$300,000 a year, that's your worst case scenario now. Like, so start making decisions, because you're always going to be good. You're blessed to be in the most beautiful fucking country in the world.
What if you're not, Ish? Like, what if you're not a hyper performing technician, installer, manager? What if you're average? You know, how do you were you always at this, incredible level, or did you have to obtain something yourself? And like,
I had to put in the work. I was working a counter, making $9 an hour, right? Then I went and started my first venture, because I needed to make more money for my girls. Because I wasn't $20 an hour, $30, $50 an hour is not gonna feed 4 girls and a wife. Like, it's gonna give them the shittiest life in California. We're gonna live in the ghetto, and I didn't want my girls to do that. So, like, what if you're not? You need to put your freaking head down and work. What about if you're just a $20 an hour installer? Learn a different trade. Plumbing, learn air conditioning, learn electrical, learn to become more valuable for the company. You're an installer making $20 an hour. You know the sales guys are making 400,000, 500,000, 600,000. So work your ass to that. Work your ass to that. Become an installer, learn how the product is installed and installed properly, then become a technician, a tune-up technician, a selling technician, a repair technician, all do that, and then become a project manager, and then keep working yourself up the ladder. You're not just gonna walk in and, just because you're whoever you think you are and ask for $1 million. Like, I had to work myself from $9 an hour at a counter all the way to I could walk into anywhere and ask for $1 million in salary, and everybody's gonna say yes to me, right? But look at all the scars in my back for that $1 million, right? And that's what people need to realize. If you're not a high performing technician, if you're not a high performing sales guy, like, dude, you need to work your ass over there. You need to start like learning what the technicians do to sell, learning how to present to the customer, learning, like, you got to keep learning.
You're so right on there. And that's really a message that I think we need to hear, not only as we come into the end of the year, and specifically a year that has been admittedly challenging for at least the HVAC side of the business. And so, I'm sure we have some listeners who are feeling a little bit beat up. They're saying they're tired of the grind because it's been a grind for 12 months, 14 months, 16 months, whatever. And they're getting to the end of this year saying, man, if the tide doesn't change on this thing, I don't know that I can keep pushing another year and keep, losing or suffering income or loss or whatever it is. So what inspiration do you have to them, and specifically the industry at large, for the guys who are saying like, dude, I've been treading water for the better part of 3/4 of a year right now, and my legs are wearing thin?
Dude, honestly, when it gets to that point, bro, I think it's more of an internal work that they got to start working on. Because if you're barely making it and you have your own business and you've been on a truck for 9 years out of the 9, 10, 11, 12 years, still have one helper, like that's 90% of America's contractors. It's themselves and a couple guys helping them to do labor, right? Like, if you're that person, you need to start getting help. You need to start asking questions. You need to start improving your health. You need to start looking within instead of just thinking like you're gonna figure it out magically. Like, dude, you've been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years and it's still the same result. It's because you're not taking decisions. You're not taking risks. You need somebody to show you that, hey, this is the way to go. I'll give you a perfect example, Nate, why we're even here. In 2019, I didn't know what gross profit was. I was running a $32 million company. I didn't know what gross profit was. Not running. I owned a $32 million company, 200 employees. Didn't know what gross profit was until I started asking questions, and I started reaching out to Ara and Vahe, and they sent me Tom Howard so they could work on my service line account. Tom Howard walks in the door and he starts educating me on financials while he's helping me use service line properly. Like, dude, you gotta ask for help, man. Like, don't think that next year's gonna be your year. Like, you can't just keep thinking that next year's gonna change, or there's somehow God, Lord Jesus is gonna come and give you the golden hand and you're gonna make millions of dollars. No, you gotta educate yourself. You gotta better yourself. You gotta start trying new things, right? The reason why the one man companies that have 3, 4 employees, the reason why they never leave that is because they got comfortable. They sold, 1 or 2 jobs and a week, or sometimes a job a week that covers their expenses for their lifestyle, and they just stay there. Right? Like, if you really want to go, you got to take the risk. But before you take risks, you got to educate yourself, man. Like, I didn't know what gross profit was, but it's not like I'm going to let that stop me. I had to educate myself on financials. I had to educate myself on what a P&L was. I had to educate myself on what a balance sheet does. I had to educate myself on all that. So then God could take me to the next phase of getting to $100 million, right? So what I would advise them to do, ask questions. Get on social media. Like, dude, could you imagine our parents that were contractors? They didn't have the luxury of being on a Zoom call at 6:14 p.m. and talking about how we can help each other. They didn't use that as an excuse to be successful. Some of these guys were super successful and they didn't have the tools we have. They didn't have Facebook. Dude, I could literally, I was so amazed at like the technology factor of it. I could DM Leland Smith and be like, hey, can you explain to me how I could improve my gross profit? Our parents didn't have access to
your competitor, mind you.
Exactly. And I'm a competitor. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? So, like, guys, get on social media, ask questions, ask for help to other people that are doing better. Like, if I'm a $1 million guy, $2 million company, I'm going to go ask for the $5 million help guy of what he's doing, because I had to do that for myself too. I didn't just wake up and it was 100 million. I had to call Jerry Bell. I had to call Leland Smith. Had to call ASI. I had to call Kenny Haynes. I had to call Geiger. I had to call Ken Goodrich. I had to call all those guys. Tommy was small at the time. By the way, I was the one that inspired Tommy's growth. Let be. So, like, I had to work my ass off and climb up there. Like, I knew Bell Brothers were doing 60 million when I was doing 30. Okay, so guys, what are you doing that you're selling? You're going up to, well, my average ticket was low. Da, 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 da. I educated myself, and that's how I got to where I'm at.
Yeah, let's flip this on its head here, Ish. So let's say that we have some listeners out there and they are high performing and they're killing it, but they're also feeling killed because they are not delegating well, and they're trying to do all these things. You're the CEO of 6-7 companies. You got all these things going on. You got your hands in a number of different pots. You got your your sticks in a number of different fires, if you will. What's your encouragement to the people who are swimming in too much of a good thing, and they're drowning because they don't know how to properly manage it? Like, what did that practically look like for you to get to a place where you can be doing all these things simultaneously?
Okay, so once I learned that by paying people better, okay, listen to what I'm going to tell you, business owners, this is going to help you guys. Once I learned what Leland's secret sauce was, because, dude, when I started Nexgen, everybody wanted to work at Nexgen except the people at Service Champions, okay, which is Leland Smith's company. Everybody wanted to work at Nexgen. Like, literally from every company, we care, everybody would just come in and apply. The one people that never applied was the Service Champions guys, right? You know what I figured out? That they were paying better than me. And once I figured out that by paying more, you can acquire higher talent, you can acquire more diverse people, you can acquire high level people. Like, they could come in and help you out in different forms of the business that you don't even know. Like, once I learned that I needed to pay more in order to get help, in order for my company to grow, that's when everything took a twist for me. I went from 32 to 60 to 100. So, like, it went from $28 million of growth to $41 million of growth in 1 year. And all I did was I learned what Leland was doing. He was just paying better than me. So I started paying people better than anybody. And now we had people flooding our gates. And if you know business, you know that you need two things in order for a business to grow. You need people and you need marketing, right? Because if you don't have marketing, if you don't have calls for these people will leave. And if you don't have people, you could have all the marketing, but they both work hand in hand. You need to have people, you need to have the marketing to be able to run those calls. So once I learned that, it was just a fluctuation of, okay, spend a little bit more in marketing, get more leads, get more people, hire more vans, right? So it was just the magic, and that's where I think the operator is born with it. You can't really teach people this. Is you start learning patterns of, like, okay, cool. If I go from $100,000 of marketing spend a month to 200, I get double the leads, right? If I go to 300, I get more. If I go to 500, I start diversifying my marketing. Cool. So now I know that I can acquire leads. Now I need the people to run the leads, right? And that's where we come in. The operators will come in and build a process to be able to grow it. So what I think, to answer your question, what was it? It was paying people more and letting people know that nobody in the industry pays more than Nexgen air conditioning.
What about from your personal journey though, Ish? Because you start your Zoom tag right now says head janitor, which I know is a friendly moniker for yourself. But you started off as head janitor, cook, bottle washer, the whole deal, right? And you grew to $100 million. Along the way, you had to shed some responsibilities, and not any responsibilities, the right responsibilities. So what was it? How did you progress through that to know which were the ones that you wanted to keep, which were the ones that you wanted to let go, and why for each of them?
So whenever I felt, and dude, a great question. And honestly, this is probably my favorite question. Along the journey, I learned that when I was growing the company, my intentions were always to employ people. My intentions were always to make sure that they were that people were employed here at Nexgen Air Conditioning, that they were making a good living. So that was always my intentions on it. When I started my journey with it, I learned that and this might not please everybody, but I learned that listening to God and making sure that He's taking the lead and you're just following along with Him is what drives everything to where it needs to be. Okay. Listening to God gives you the power of getting to the place you're going to go to without knowing where you're going to go to. And along that journey, listening to him was, hey, this person needs to go because, it's a huge liability in the company. Or, hey, you need to stop drinking because, the operation's out of whack because you're not paying attention to it because you're too busy being drunk. Right. So I knew I had to shed people. I had to trim myself. I had to make myself better. So I gave up drinking. I gave up all drug. Like I used to smoke weed. I don't no more. So like I gave up things in order for God to let other things come into my life. Once I learned that, oh man, it was game over, man. Honestly, it was game over because I knew that God was using me to give to other people, and that's like, all right, cool. So if you're gonna use me to give to other people, I don't have a problem. Just make sure you take care of me and my girls, right? And that's what He's done. So I don't think it makes sense to a lot of people if they're not believers, especially if they're not believers, but that's exactly what I did, man. I started listening to Him and what He wanted me to do, and I started going by His word.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective as a man of faith myself, and your boldness in proclaiming that. So thank you for that. When it comes to like where you're at now, give us a rundown of even like your daily schedule. Like how do you shift from a problem over here in your juice bar to a new creative idea that you want to do for Data Cube to a production question for Nuvi, and like how are you making the mental jumps through all the different varieties of problems that can come up during a day?
Making sure that I'm at peace at all time. Listen to me. Making sure that I'm at peace at all time is what allows me to make 100 decisions in one. Right? I don't have to be at Data Cube. I don't have to be at Nuve. I don't have to be at Legacy. I don't have to be at Nexgen. I don't have to, like, I'm still there physically at Nexgen, going there every day and love on my people. But I don't have to be in there. As long as I'm at peace, I see what's wrong with the operation, and I have key people in every operation that know how to manage that operation for me, and I see something wrong with it, and that's where we fix it. But in order for you to see something, you need to be at peace. You can't have so much noise in your head of like, I need to pay the bills. I'm falling behind on this. And, I need to sell more. I need to hire more people. Like once you have all that clogged up in your head that you're doing so much for the business itself, like I need to go buy a new van. How am I going to buy for that? But like your time is wasted on that you never get to really have peace and start making those high level decisions. So once I learned that in order for me to continue my growth, I need to be at 100% peace, right? And peace, when I say peace is, hey, I got to pray in the morning. I got to make sure that my girls are good, take them to school, spend some time with them. I got to make sure that my businesses are good. I got to make sure that all that is doing good in order for me to have peace in my heart so I can make high level decisions. And now I'm not making 10 decisions per business. Now I just got to make one decision in every business and it'll affect the whole business. Like that's when that's when you guys are going to realize that you're in the right stage, is when you're at peace and everything's moving forward.
So I heard Tyler Perry speak at a global leadership conference at one time a couple years back, and he's both an actor and a director. He makes all kinds of movies and things like that. And if I recall, he spends 2 or 3 days in creativity only. Like that's the only thing that he does for those 2 or 3 days, and then he spends another 2 or 3 days of the week in his administrative side where he's handling more of the business end. Do you segment your day in any way, or your days of the week or weeks of the month, to help you move from one area to another, or is your mind just constantly always able to handle the differences?
I segment my day, so I basically have some assistants too helping me out and making sure that my day doesn't fall short. So I have a schedule that I go by, and I make sure that I tackle only important things that are going to be able to affect my business, right? So you need to have a little bit of this. You actually, let me rephrase that. You need to have a lot of discipline in order for you to accomplish. Like if you want something really big, like you want to grow a company to $100 million and you want to sell it and do all that, like dude, that requires a lot of energy, a lot of time, and a lot of that. Like you need to be able to have discipline to get there. Like God is going to get you there. And yes, if you work hard and all that, but you also need discipline. So I do have a schedule that I go by, but I only go by that schedule on the important things that are happening in my life, right? And I make sure that I prioritize that. Like I know that my grows are first. I know that my businesses are second. I know that God is first. I know that my grows are right after him, and then my businesses are third. So I make sure that I segment my day on that. So like if my grows need me for whatever reason, that's gonna come priority to me before I do anything else.
Yeah, that's well said. Another thing that, high production type people have to learn to deal with is the unexpected, right? So some people build into their day, spacers. I've heard different strategies about how to do that. They call them buffers, or they put in blocks in their scheduling where it's just unfiltered or unscheduled time so that they can adjust or adapt to things that come in. From your perspective, I'm sure, one phone call to the next can blow up your schedule, so to speak. And everybody knows that, whether you're a tech in the field or whether you're a manager or an owner of a business, one call, one phone call, one something can just completely wreck whatever you had intended to do for the day. How do you handle that type of interaction or interruption, if you will, in your day to day? And what have you decided to do to make the most of it when that occurs?
Discipline. I discipline myself to making sure that no matter what decisions what comes my way, there's no reaction to it. I analyze it before I start going crazy on, and it messes up my whole day. And it's discipline and knowing that I don't have enough time in the day to be able to focus on one thing, one problem, right? Unless that problem is something to do with my growth. But pretty much, as long as when my growths are doing good and my growths are safe and healthy, everything else can wait, bro. Everything else can wait. So like I had disciplined myself enough to I need to go to the gym because I got to take care of myself, because if I can't take care of myself, then it doesn't matter what those girls have, right? So my girl, my beautiful daughter. So I discipline myself to taking care of myself, and then making sure that no matter what comes my way, as long as my girls are healthy and happy and good, then everything else can be paused, or everything else could be slowed down. So slowing down the situation is one thing that I probably mastered this year. Is no matter what a problem is, instead of being super reactive, which I was back in the day, I would just start calling and it would mess up my day. I wouldn't want to go to work. I would be pissed off at my wife. I would be pissed off at the girls. Like, I stopped doing that because it was selfish of me to do that, and knowing that it's not their fault, right? So I discipline myself of like, okay, whatever comes my way in the day, as long as my girls are safe and they're good, we can slow down and we could make decisions, methodical decisions, instead of reactive decisions. So now if something comes up, let's say one of our restaurants, somebody got hurt. Obviously, I care about it and I want to talk to them and make sure they're good. But I'm not gonna be like, oh shit, I got to close down the restaurant. People are gonna get me. Like, I don't. I chill. I look at what's going on and I make sure that I make the executive decision based on slowing the process down instead of just snapping fingers.
So you've learned a sense of calm in the midst of panic.
Oh yeah. It goes back to having, man.
What would you say? I'm sure you've been in situations where you panicked before and you felt like your hair was on fire, and now those situations, looking back, look like a joke. Like you would know exactly what to do and how to do it. But would you say there was one big thing ever that happened that kind of helped you turn that corner? Was there any one situation that stands out in business?
I think, yeah, and you know what? Now that I think about it, Brian, I think it was when Nexgen wasn't doing so good in 2019, and I was barely making payroll for my employees in 2019. And I think the set that I can always remember when I was sitting down on my computer and looking at all the accounts and trying to have enough money to hit payroll, and luckily I did. But that feeling of me panicking and me looking at the accounts and me making calls to, hey, I need this paid, I need, like, that feeling never left my body. Like, I already know that no matter what, I got to take care of my family and I got to take care of my employees, right? So once I learned that, once I was going through all those accounts, and I remember just feeling this like anger inside me of like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I can't figure it out. Once I started like really analyzing that feeling never left my body, and I promised myself that I had to educate myself to make this business turn around. So there's always money in the accounts, and I'm never worried about payroll. And that's what I did. So in 2019, it took me like 2-3 months to turn the whole freaking company around. Made 100 million decisions that would have taken a regular person, years and years to turn it around. We did it in like less than 45 days. The whole business was producing profit.
Wow. And
So it was that feeling.
What size were you at then?
32 million.
Okay. I noticed the red drink you're drinking there. It looks kind of like a more nutritious V8.
Oh yeah. So I drink green juices, and my chef does these like really healthy juices just to keep me active. And like I rarely take an energy drink here and there. I like a sip on it, but like I love the energy, the natural juices. So
yeah, looks delicious, doesn't it, Minik?
It does.
Looks delicious. So we asked you this question last time, or some version of this. I just remember this specifically the last time you were on, because I made what I thought was a ridiculous reel out of it that I posted on Facebook with like some music in the background to it. I don't remember if I sent it to you or not, but it was a tight reel of just a little like 10-second clip of your episode. But the question was, well, some version of you're starting over today. All right. You're hopping into one of the techs listening, one of their bodies, and you're starting your own company, and maybe you're already in it, but you're at $1 million a year in revenue. What would you tell yourself looking back from here? What's one piece of advice?
Educate myself on the back end financial end, so I obviously in 2019 that helped me a lot, and I was able to turn the company around and mentally and spiritually, and it helped me a ton, because I had to go through that rough bump in my life to be able to know my financials now inside and out. So definitely, if I was starting over again, I would educate myself on numbers, like what overhead is, what gross profit is, what net profit is, how much I should be spending, how much I should be paying, what percentages I should be operating the business on, like all those questions I would educate myself a little bit more on, just so like I could plan better, and I'm not stressing over money all the time. Right. So I would definitely, if I was 18 years old and I knew exactly what I knew now, and I could talk to him right now, I would just be like, hey man, look for your Tom Howard, look for the guy, look for that person that's going to take you to the next step in your journey, that's going to help you to the next day in the next level in the journey. 2019 was Tom Howard for me. 2023 is LSD. Like we're all helping each other get to 250 to 500 to $1 billion in revenue. Like we're all gonna help each other. So I would definitely tell myself like, hey, ask for help. Don't be so hard headed. Don't think that you know everything, because to me, I think I come off really confident and really cocky sometimes, right? But like, I don't know what I don't know. Like I'm still trying to figure out things too. It's not like I have the magic ball that I could yes, I could, if you put a gun to my head, I could rebuild Nexgen in 5 years to $100 million. No problem. I'll figure it out. Right. But like, I took more headaches in the 5 years and the 8 years journey that I should have, when I could have just been like, hey man, can anybody help me? Like what, like everybody keeps asking me what my average ticket would be at $32 million. Everybody keeps asking me what's the percentage of revenue spent on my growth rate. Like that's what I would educate myself, so I could make better decisions, because I made some stupid decisions that didn't have to be made, because I didn't ask for help, and I thought I knew everything.
So let's say you're talking to a young business owner now who is a numbers guru. What advice do you have for somebody who's the back end, the books I'm solid in, right? But I don't know much else. So what advice would you give that young business owner?
You're cutting off a little bit. What was that, Brian?
So that's the advice you would give yourself as a young-ish, or maybe like a young Brian. Well, let's say it's a young Nate. Nate is a back end guy. Pardon the pun.
Yep.
Nate's a books guy, a numbers guy. Like he understands the numbers come naturally to him. So what advice would you give to somebody who's already got the numbers head on their shoulders, but you know what this guy's struggling with? Top line.
Making decisions. The numbers guys always struggle with making decisions. The guys that don't know their numbers don't struggle with the decision makings, because they don't know what they don't know, and they're just making decisions trying to save themselves. Right? Listen to what I said. The numbers guys are so over analytic of the decision that they lack the decision making process. So they're making one decision a year because they're analyzing every angle of it. The other guy, which was myself, was hey, I don't care. I just want to fucking employ people. Let's go balls out and start selling these air conditionings, right? So the young Nate that's in the CSR room, or the young Nate accountant, or the young Nate that's a production manager making $110,000 a year, that young Nate is over analyzing every decision which is keeping him away from what he wants. You need to make way more decisions, and learning that not every decision is going to be a good decision, or some of them are going to be bad. But that's not the point of a decision. The point of a decision is finding out that it's a good or bad decision. The point, once you find out what it is, you can pivot. If you tried a marketing source if you tried a marketing source for 6 months and it didn't work, at least you tried it though. Otherwise, in the back of your head, you could have always not tried it, and that could have been the best marketing source in the whole world. But you overanalyzed it, and it took you so long to make that one decision. Should I go on this fucking direct mail piece? Well, the only way to find out is to try it and track it, right? So until you do that, you're always going to be stuck on that place. The only way you move forward, young Nate or young Brian or over analytic Brian, the only way you move forward is by decisions. Every decision you make is a step forward. Some of it might be a step left, but you can always go to the step right?
Perfect. And that does pretty much sum up what you said last time, which was I've learned to pivot so quickly. Make a decision, and if it was wrong, switch gears.
Exactly. So yeah, man. Great questions, Nate. Honestly, you're probably my favorite podcast now. Some of these questions that you're asking are really well thought out questions, which kind of throws me back and lets me think. And I love the process of thinking.
Well, I'm in a group chat with all the other podcast hosts, and I just recorded that and sent it to them.
Hell yeah. I'll put it out there. I'm telling you, this was my favorite podcast, hands down, because of the questions that you guys are asking. You guys are asking good, methodical, clean questions that's going to help the technicians, the sales guys, the installers, the office personnel with making decisions in their life. So that's dope, guys.
It's very kind. Well, Ish, I know you have your hands in some things that you're pretty excited about. Why don't you talk to us about some of the up and coming things you're working on right now?
I want to get on to Nube. So let's talk about Nube, guys, because obviously we're running out of time here pretty soon. But I want to talk about Nube because just the impact that it's going to have in our industry is going to be next to Service Titan's impact that it had in our industry, bringing in a CRM that uniforms us to make better decisions. Like, the thermostat that we came up with is called Nube. There's features in it that no other thermostat can do. And the one thing that I'm really, really, really excited about, and I know I posted, that memberships are dead. That was more just to stir up the pot and just kind of get that conversation.
Oh, it did.
Of why. Yeah, dude, I had thousands of fucking DMs and ton of 500-600 comments on that. So look, the only thing I was trying to do with that is stir up the question of why are they dead? And if they're not, then why are they not? That's all I wanted to do is let's talk about memberships. How do we make it better? Because it's a huge sector and everybody's business. Everybody thinks that memberships will cure cancer, right? Which memberships are good. Remember, you need to have members. You need to have that MRR model coming in. Well, all I'm saying is there a better way to run a membership, right? And I'm calling it a monitoring fee. We need to start monitoring these systems and making decisions based on runtime instead of we haven't been there in 6 months to sell them something. That's all I'm saying. How do we acquire? Number one, our biggest struggle is acquiring new clients. Number two, retaining those clients, right? So this thermostat that I came up with, number one, it's going to have your company logo on 24/7. So every time they need you, they click on the logo on the thermostat and it dispatches a tech. All they have to do is approve it on their app. Hey, confirm the time for the technician to arrive just by clicking a button on the thermostat, right? Number two, every time somebody goes into that thermostat, it's registered to your regional contractor. Okay, so somebody's trying to work on your units. Nobody ever knows that. We've installed 30, 40,000 units and Nexgen air conditioning. Somebody's working on those units right now that's my competitor, and nobody ever knows that. So now, if somebody's trying to get into the settings menu on the thermostat, I'll alert the original contractor and say, hey, somebody's trying to get on the settings menu. Call your customer. So we're going to be able to retain the client. Number two, it's going to automatically send alerts of saying, hey, heater safety inspection needed before winter. And now you have that client knows which company, right, installed that heater, and you're going to be able to service them right now. Because right now, if somebody bought my house right now, they wouldn't know that Nexgen air conditioning installed everything, right? Because they're walking to a thermostat that says Nest or Honeywell or Ecobee. They got to look for their own contractor. So putting your thermostat, the first thing that people do is look at the thermostat when they need their air conditioning, right?
Yep.
Of course. So why not have a logo there? Why not retain the client there, right? The dopest part about this, I also put an auto cycling feature where we're going to be able to turn on these units remotely in the shoulder season, not in prime demand. So like what happens when the first 95-degree day comes in? Everybody's turning on their units and you got warranties up the ass, right? So imagine if you could trigger all these units based on zip codes, based on cities, based on whatever you want to filter out on them, and start turning on these units and monitoring the runtime and making sure that they're ready for summer in March or April, right? When there's no call. No, now you're going to catch all the warranties in the front instead of in the midst of fire. Now your technicians are going to be able to run more opportunity calls. The installers aren't going to be tying up running warranty calls in the middle of summer when they should be installing units to produce revenue. Like you're going to be able to catch all that on the front end. That was probably one of the coolest. Ready for the coolest part of the best feature on the thermostat is that once the customer is ready to get the app on their phone, they scan a QR code on the thermostat. That QR code leads them to the app store, which turns into a Nexgen logo or a Benjamin Franklin logo or a Service Champions logo or a Parker & Sons logo. So every time they need to use their thermostat, they're going to see your logo on their home screen. Every time they want to turn it on, they got to click the Benjamin Franklin logo. They click on it and their thermostat features comes in. And on the app, they'll never notice it's a Nuve thermostat. I don't care if they ever find out it is. I want the customer to know that you're the guy that installed that unit. The equipment's Benjamin Franklin, the thermostat's Benjamin Franklin, their app is Benjamin Franklin, like all of that is uniform. So now imagine the impact it's going to have on the clients, on the brand, on the marketing source.
Where are you at in terms of the process there? Are you already distributing? It's out there?
Done. January next year, I'm releasing 15,000 units, and we're going to have about 110,000 manufactured for 2024. Most of them are going to be pre-sold through service time customers, but most of 2025, I have 500,000 thermostats getting developed, and then 2026, we're going to do 1 million. Start doing 1 million thermostats a year.
That's awesome, man. I think there's going to be some cool things that come out of that. What does the monitoring side of that look like, for the owner or the company, I should say?
For the contractor, we're only going to charge $400 for the thermostat. So it's just like buying an Ecobee or a Nest or a Honeywell. And all they have to do is pay $1,000 a month to be able to use all the dashboard and all the features, the messaging things through the app, all that. It's $1,000 a month for contractors, and they could just keep buying thermostats in there. And as soon as they buy 10 thermostats and they're installed, it automatically triggers the alert onto their dashboard, which shows, hey, these 10 thermostats are installed at this customer's house.
Nice. That sounds like an innovative thing, man. And the industry is always looking for a disruptor to come in and bring something to the table that hasn't been done before. So kudos to you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. And honestly, thank you guys for having me on the podcast, Nate and Brian. I'm telling you, I promise you, this was my favorite podcast. Thanks to the amazing questions that Nate and Brian had. You guys killed it, bro.
Well, we got one more for you.
Two more then, because I got one more too. Go ahead,
Brian.
So I had a question. So you sold Nexgen, most of Nexgen? All of it. And without going into the numbers, you probably can't go into it. I'm not trying to, but they were big. It was a lot of numbers. A lot of zeros on there. And
a lot of commas.
if you as a tech, as an owner, as a whatever, you sit back and think of the day your ship comes in, like what's the first thing you do? And as I sit back and think about my ship coming in and a big sum hitting me, and I think, what's the first thing among the very first things I do? Well, one of those first things is going to be walk up to Amelia Burton, Mrs. Burton, and show her the gift that I bought her that she knew nothing about. I gotta imagine, because you're a ladies' man. You're a man about your wife and daughters. What was the gift that your wife received?
a Rolls Royce Cullinan. I bought her a Rolls Royce Cullinan for Mother's Day, and I bought her like a huge freaking. I bought her a watch, and I bought her a like a badass engagement ring. So yeah, it was that. But the Rolls Royce Cullinan,
Cool.
we were at a resort, and I had it towed. I had it taken to the resort, and when she came,
That's
out,
a
I was
Phantom,
there.
right?
Yeah, it's a Rolls Royce Cullinan, which is the SUV Rolls Royce. For me, it was when the money came in and I knew it was good to go. I bought an SVJ Lamborghini, which is my favorite car of all time, and that's when yeah, I still remember that, man. That is probably one of the dopest days too.
That's awesome.
I know
Good
it wasn't as technical as the other questions, but it was just
Good. I love this question.
Well, Ish, as we wrap up here, we appreciated you being on, but the last thing I wanted to ask you is about excuses. So when people experience success, when people obtain the things, the dream, like when people arrive, sometimes there's a box that gets checked in the head and there's like I've made it, I can coast now. You've made it, at least in terms of your original dream. And I'm sure you keep dreaming bigger and bigger, but what is it inside of you that prevents you from accepting the excuses of, I've made it, this is good enough, I'm satisfied, I'm done? What prevents you from making your own excuses as we wrap up here?
There's two reasons that do it for me personally. Number one is I am super hyper competitive. Like I am the most competitive person probably in this whole universe besides Michael Jordan. So I'm always in competition with LSD. I'm always in competition with myself. I'm always in competition with the world. Like I'm always trying to do better. That's number one. And then number two, knowing that I want to make sure that no matter what, before I leave this earth, I want to make sure that my 4 daughters and their daughters and their daughters and their kids and their like grandkids and I want to make sure that my bloodline, right, because of everything that my mom and dad went through to get us to the United States, I want to make sure that it wasn't in vain and it wasn't I wasn't a burden on people. So that's the second motivation, is making sure that like I know that for the rest of eternity, the name Valdez will always be financially stable so they can enjoy life. So it might be a good thing, it might be a bad thing, but to me, I'll get fulfillment knowing that my girls are going to be good and then their kids are going to be good and their kids are going to be good. So I get fulfillment out of that, to be honest.
And for our listeners, that can be the same case for you if you continue to eliminate the excuses in your life. Ish, it's been good to have you on, man. Thanks so much for sharing a lot of what you've done today, and we're excited for what you're doing in the future.
Oh, thank you guys, man. Honestly, and congratulations on your podcast too. I said it to Jason because he's a good friend of mine and, he has a really dope podcast, but you guys been really consistent on your podcast too and making sure you're putting content out there. So I want to congratulate you guys on that too. And if you guys ever need anything, if a listener ever has a question that we can help on, make sure that you guys reach out to me because I'm always here to make sure that I serve enough people where God lets me into his gates.
Thank you, Ish.
Love it. Thanks, Ish. It's always great talking to you,
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks, man. Take care.
That's a wrap for this show. Always good to hear from Ish and the inspiration and excitement that he brings every single time that he's on. If you didn't hear his original episode, it was back in March 27 of 2023. So make sure that you catch that. But of course, he brought the heat once again in today's episode, and just some powerful words about eliminating excuses from your life and choosing to risk things, knowing that knowing that you are already performing at this level and that there's only opportunity beyond that. And I've really appreciated talking to him today, and always appreciate his openness and willingness to step into whatever it is in front of him and just turn it upside down and make the most of it. Well, it's been a good show for us today, and we hope that you've enjoyed it. As always, we'd love to hear your feedback. Let us know in the on the social media world. Hit us up in the comments. Let us know with your reviews. We greatly appreciate that. As always, we want to let you with our weekly challenge, which of course ties very nicely into having no excuses, and that is to choose to wake up every single morning and waste no day.